I wrote this one up for Kay's note thread yesterday, but since I phoned up a friend to help remind me certain parts that happened, the thread ended up 404ing before I could post it. I've only ever had a handful of creepy encounters before, and when I think back on this specific one, it was more cool than it was noteworthy. It may seem a bit drawn out, but I'll be telling it exactly as I remember it, and in as great of detail as I can. I suck at Greentexting stories, but I'll give it a whirl. Be 14-year-old me, about 5 years ago, in southwestern Alberta, lots of plains that quickly turned into dense forests. Have a job helping retired war veterans do chores and property maintenance. Have one Air Force veteran in his early 90s, I'll call him Mr. H, who has me bike out to his house in the country every Sunday and help around the yard. Has an old dirt truck that we take down the dirt road on his property to the far edge of forest. Spend most Sundays chopping trees into kindling. Be driving back with full load. See a man on the side of narrow dirt path, whistling casually and walking towards us. Get told to unroll window by Mr. H. Mr. H asks the man what he's up to today in a very familiar tone. The man stops whistling, stares at me intensely with his pale blue eyes, and replies that his vehicle broke down nearby. The man speaks as if English is not his first language, yet he has no notable accent. There's a sporadic rhythm to the way he spoke that I've never heard before. I get nervous because there's no road nearby. Aside from the narrow dirt path we're currently on, there's nothing but dense forest on either side of us for kilometers around. Mr. H offers to give the man a lift and asks me to scoot into the middle seat so we can have the passenger seat. Again, it was one of those ancient 3-seater trucks. I do as told and scoot over. The man stands at the door and continues to stare at me through the window, trying not to stare back. Mr. H asks me to open the door for him. I notice the door is not locked, but do as I'm told anyway and open the door for the man, who made no effort to open it for himself. The strange man hops on in, and Mr. H asks if I could get the door for him again. I'm feeling very nervous at this point, as I have to lean across this man to reach the door. Mr. H begins to drive the truck, with the door still open, so I quickly put aside my strange feeling and close the door, noticing out of my peripherals the man's blue eyes locked onto me the entire time. Mr. H tells me to be polite and introduce myself. I reach my hand out just as I would with any other person and meet the man's eyes. "Hello sir, my name is Gid. That was just my nickname as a kid, and it's a pleasure to meet you." He shakes my hand back and tells me that it is a pleasure to meet me as well. He does not tell me his name in return, only that he is pleased to meet me. My nerves and uneasy feeling about this man made my hands very clammy and sweaty. Don't know what I was expecting his hands to feel like when I shook it, but all I could feel was a cold sweatiness of my own. The man immediately looks out the side window after releasing my hand. I'm relieved that he finally stopped staring at me for the very first time since I met him. Try not to be rude by staring at the man like he stared at me. Begin to look out windows and get quick glances of him whenever I can. Notice that the man is wearing very old clothing. Not old as in tattered, but old as in old-fashioned. Observe the man's tall leather boots with cloth wrappings around his legs to hold them on, like the ANZAS used to wear. Notice that he's wearing a knee-length leather duster, and can see what looks like a khaki/tan vest and white shirt underneath. All I could see were the collars and top buttons from where I was sitting. This man has a very old-timey mustache, and his greasy black hair combed back behind his ears. I estimated his age to be around 50, but couldn't be sure. It struck me as odd that a man of his age, or what I guessed his age was, had such pale, fair skin. No red nose, red ears, or squinty eyes like most outdoorsy people have by his age. Putting all of this aside, I sat quietly and listened to Mr. H speak up briefly. Mr. H asked the man how things have been at home. The man spends the next 20 minutes talking about his wife and young daughter being healthy and happy, always having dinner ready when he gets home. Nothing too unusual. Neither myself or Mr. H get in a word as the man is talking. He continues about home and what he's been up to lately in his strange and unique accent. He's still staring out the window, the very same way he did immediately after he shook my hand. I continue thinking nothing of it, just to be glad he isn't staring at me. The man changes the topic on his own accord, as if he enjoys talking about whatever was on his mind. He begins to tell me a story about a bear he killed just last week. It'd been tearing down their laundry and scratching the side of his house almost every night for a couple of weeks, and he finally got sick of it. This is why I assumed he was an outdoorsman and was puzzled by his appearance. He continues on about what he's caught in his traps recently and how his wife turns it into dinner, all the while blankly staring out the window. About 15 minutes have gone by this point, and we're still slowly puttering down the narrow dirt path as we typically do, with another 10 minutes or so ahead of us until we reach the place where we normally stash the firewood. Mr. H finally speaks up after being silent the whole time and asks the man if this is where his vehicle broke down. The man snaps his head back in our direction very quickly, almost as if he somehow forgot we were there and caught him by surprise. The man does not respond to Mr. H's question, Mr. H parks the truck and gets out to open the door on the other side for the strange man, instead of asking me to do it. While Mr. H is slowly shuffling his way around the front of the truck to the other side, the man stares at me the very same way he did when we first met. He continues to do this for what feels like hours, but it must have only been less than a minute. Trying to be polite, I tell him that he sounds like he has a very nice family, and that I enjoy hearing about them. His head cocked to the side slightly, as if he didn't understand what I was talking about. I very clearly remember him furrowing his brow, and me being worried that I somehow made him angry by saying that. Shut my mouth and didn't say another word. Mr. H finally opened the door and said he would see the man later. The man, ignoring Mr. H, kept staring at me and said, "It was a pleasure to meet you," before looking away again and exiting the truck. As Mr. H made his way back to his side of the truck, I took the opportunity to stare at the man out of the window. Not in a tune or anything, just in a sporadic noise as he was before. The man began walking down the dirt road, the exact same direction we had just come from. When Mr. H got back in the truck and started driving again, I continued to stare in the rearview mirror, watching as the man slowly veered off the path and back into the dense woods just off to the right hand side. The rest of the day continued as usual. I was too nervous to mention the man to Mr. H, since he seemed to think nothing of it and barely even noticed he was there at all. It was only when I called my dad to pick me up and my bike up that I began to notice more of the strange things that happened. The man said his car had broken down nearby when we picked him up, but when we dropped him off much further down the road, he just wandered right back in the direction we picked him up from. There was no way in hell there was a car, or another road in that dense forest either. One of the strangest things that I noticed as me and Mr. H were driving back was that the man did not smell. He had been wearing a leather duster and had greased his hair back with something, yet there was absolutely no smell coming off of him. If anybody reading this has an old-fashioned leather jacket kicking around, you know exactly which smell I'm talking about. I worked for Mr. H for a little bit less than 2 years after that until he passed away, but we never went back into the woods to chop wood like we did before in that time. After a few weeks, I had asked him if he had seen the man again, to which he replied, "Yes, I have. His wife and young daughter are healthy and happy." He says this exact same phrase every time I mention the man over the next couple years, but I never inquired farther than that. He was known to have breakdowns when he got worked up, PTSD maybe. After Mr. H passed away, I brought a friend with me to help clean up the property a bit before his grandson flew in to deal with Mr. H's belongings and whatnot. His grandson was nice, but definitely a city slicker who didn't like being in a small town in the middle of nowhere. I asked him if he ever spent much time with Mr. H, or if his parents ever told him anything about strange things happening around here. The grandson told me that his parents were worried about Mr. H after his wife died, because he had a mental breakdown. They would hear stories about a strange man visiting him while he was chopping wood in the forest by himself. I got permission from the grandson for my friend and I to camp out there for a couple of days just to make sure that nobody came by to steal anything while the place was unattended. We came back with a couple of shotguns in case of bears. The next morning, I went foot slogging down the dirt path towards where I used to chop firewood. I'd filled my friend in on the strange man and wanted to see if he would come and visit us. While we went out on a stroll, we heard plenty of rustling in the bushes and twigs snapping nearby. But we weren't city kids, we didn't think much of it. Those are just the noises of the forest. We came across a very small clearing in the woods about 15 meters off the dirt road with a small shack built in the middle. I had been down this road many times, but never noticed this before. It was entirely concealed by trees, with no path of its own leading to it. Both my friend and I got a very uneasy feeling from this place. The roof had rotted and caved in long ago, but still stayed intact to a certain extent. There were the flattened remains of a child's wooden horse toy, rotting and flattened into the ground. There was a frayed rope coming from the corner of the roof that caved in, and leading into a rotten pole that had cracked in half and fallen to the ground. A clothesline was my best guess. My friend, who is a lot braver than me, removed his pocket flashlight from his vest and wanted to take a quick peek inside the small shack. I convinced him not to do so, and instead sit on the edge of the clearing with me and see if we could hear anything first, like whistling or footsteps, or any noise that just didn't belong. The whole place gave me the creeps. Now I was pretty unsettled by the tiny house for some reason. The way the tall trees blocked the sunlight from getting to it was eerie. It just didn't belong there, and it didn't sit well with either of us after taking a breather for a good 10 minutes. We finally manned up after our rest and decided to poke our heads in and see what was in there. My friend went first. He kicked down the last remnants of the rotten wooden door and poked his 870 inside with the flashlight aiming down the barrel. It was immediately after the door was kicked down I had the worst chill run down my spine. I felt the same clammy sweatiness that comes over me when something really doesn't feel right. My buddy yelped and jolted back a few seconds later with his 870 still pointed at the door, finger on the trigger. Something had spooked him real bad while he was leaning in the door. He claimed that he heard a loud and abrupt whistle sound come from the corner of the room to the immediate right side of the door, the kind of whistle that somebody does to get your attention. I heard nothing at all. I was still jittery at the feeling that I was being watched closely. My friend kept his shotgun fixed on the doorway the entire time. His stance was firm and low to the ground, as if he was expecting something to come out any second. He wasn't blinking, and the way he was breathing so heavily had me feeling my pants. He's not the type of person to get scared so easily. There were no windows in the shack, only that one door. There was no way of seeing in without poking your body back in through the doorway. Neither of us were very fond of that idea. We decided to head back to the house and pack it in for the day after that. It was a painfully slow walk back, as we both couldn't help jumping at every twig snap and bush rustling, feeling that cold stare the entire time. It's been a few years now, and I wish I could say that the story had a more climatic ending, but I really was just too spooked to go back. I still do contemplate going back and investigating though. Even today, one of my biggest regrets in life, not being upfront with Mr. Hannigan and asking him what the whole deal with that man was. He sounded so familiar with him every time I asked, but never went into farther detail than his wife and daughter being healthy and happy. I can't say that I regret noping away from that shack though, as I still get jittery thinking about it. I would have liked nothing more than to meet the man again and hear another one of his stories with a friend nearby to verify it. The only other person I know who ever saw that man had died a few years ago, but after being curious dumbasses and kicking down the door to what I assumed was someone's house at some point and getting scared off immediately, I just wouldn't feel welcome going back there again.